Hello and welcome to yet another Vue tutorial in our class about Vue and Firebase connection to create our first virtual store. In the following video, I will quickly explain the use of lists, the V4 directive, which can be much more complex if you want to get deep into it. I will just show you a basic functionality of the V4. Of course, you can find a lot of different examples on the web, so the only thing I will show you is at least how to start using V4. What is V4? Let's look a bit about the structure of our code. Let's remember that we have the intro component, which is being shown right here, okay, under the logo. What I'm interested in is showing a list of information of visual elements that may be repeating itself, but not being the same, each one the same. After all, what I'm trying to create is some kind of object representation, okay, an array of object representations. Okay, great. So to do that, first I will show you the directive that we used to use, that we are used to use, okay, that we are tend to use, which is the V4 option. Okay, I'm going to copy from an example that I've found in the official documentation, and I will explain a bit what it means. So first of all, we'll see that we are defining a list space, okay, called example 1, and a list inside the list component that will just put a indentation with a point in each element that will be seen here. Inside the li component, which is a standard component, we are adding, yes, a call to V4 that is going to go one by one inside the array, okay, iterate inside the array position after position, and each value of the array will be in each cycle, which will be stored in the item variable. And then I will print the value inside the variable message that is inside the object item. Okay, so for this to work, yes, first of all I have to run the npm run serve, because right now there is nothing. Okay, it's loading okay, great, and now I can refresh it, but it will show nothing because the array items, yes, doesn't really exist. We have to define it in the GS, in the JavaScript side, okay, in the controller side. And for that, I will also copy the one that I can find in the example and put it inside the data section, because it's going to be another variable, okay? The array items, each element in the array is an object, yeah, composed by a variable message. Well, in this case, the message is foo and the second message is bar. Okay, again, this can be found in the web. It's well, it's still not showing it. We'll check it soon. We'll check why. I'm not really understand why it's not showing it, but maybe there is an error. Nope, I think. I'm not sure if the one here is continuing the error from before. Maybe the event is defined but never used. Okay, but that's a warning. It's an error. Okay, so it's considered an error. Let me take that element out of the picture and let's try it again. Clear, and let's run the serve. Okay, now it's not showing it. Maybe now it's still not showing the this area, which is, now we'll try to find out why. The result should have been, the reason is that I haven't defined, right, I haven't defined the, I have to also to define the, well, let's take this UL out of the picture. Maybe that will improve the situation. Yeah, okay, sorry for the UL part. This was the definition of a component. We can forget it. Okay, so if we want it to work, we just create an li list component, and we put the v4 to iterate all the array. Okay, so fine. Now we have something that allow us to create multiple values. Okay, in this case, it's just a list, but in the future, you could create a grid, or for example, some kind of a store where you have multiple products and they're shown in a grid-like structure. Okay, we have to also remember that we can later on define inside the SCSS definition, yeah, style for the list and etc. Okay, right now there is nothing, but you can start composing the SCSS to contain, for example, styling. Let's try it in a second. Let's try it, for example. So inside the intro component, which is everything in that component itself, let's define, for example, that the list, yeah, like this, will have a font size of, I don't know, 24 pixels. If I save that, you see how it grows, right? It turns bigger. I can put it like 44 pixels or whatever. I can define also the H1 element to font, I think font style, for example, to be bold maybe. I'm not absolutely sure. It's not font style, but whatever. Let's see what kind of options we have. Weight, font variants, the font family. We can define the font family, for example, Verdana. If we do that and we save, the style changes in here on the left. You see? So, well, sans serif. I mean, we can play around with the options here and start defining a bit of styling to our visual elements. Remember that this just complies precisely with the same rules as you will find in standard CSS code. Only difference is that there are some extra functionality that SCSS allow us to use to give some scripting and a bit more, like, for example, smarter CSS to insert animations and insert transitions that in later on tutorials I will try to show you, but right now I just don't want to get into it too much. So last thing, for example, let's say size, let's put it like 32 pixels for the button. Not sure if that's gonna work. Maybe I have to put also text size to be I don't know, maybe now. Okay, so I guess you have to put font size. Yeah, there. So I put it bigger, the bottom. Okay. So with this, I just show you a very first approach to use the v4 options. I can remind you that here inside you can also always put other things. I'm going to put this, so you have to repeat the button. You can repeat this inside the for example, like this. Sorry, there is no limit in the combination of elements that you can do to each of the. You see how they all both of them change, yeah, because they're both depending on the variable condition one. So there is there's no limit, there's no kind of limit for what you can combine between the Vue commands and the HTML plus JavaScript commands. Okay, we will continue working on it. Now we're going to direct our work towards the creation of a component that will be communicating with the Firebase backend. And finally, after we can create the component for login, for example, to communicate with the Firebase backend, we will try to create some kind of a small store, for example, a list of components that will be able to also pay for it. I will somehow be connected to a PayPal or a card, a small card, which will be able to insert those products and then pay for them, sending the payment information towards PayPal, for example. Okay, and with that we will finish this playlist of tutorials. So see you next time.